you need
And
permission, I think, to share, Lori.
right, thank you. Sorry about that. All right, welcome, Elliot. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about to talk about creating your portfolio.
Cool. Yeah, so hi everyone. Like Lori said, my name is Elliot. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm just going to share a little bit about building a developer portfolio. Wanted to start out by asking how many of you already have a portfolio of some kind. Maybe if you're not on video, just a raise of a hand. Okay, I got one. All right, so maybe a new project for a lot of you on the call. So that's great. So just starting out, like, what is the importance of having a portfolio? So where a portfolio is really helpful is if you don't have like a college degree or previous jobs and work experience that you can use to articulate your skills in practice. A portfolio is a great way to showcase what you can do and to show that to a future employer so that there's that sort of proof in a way or evidence that what you're saying that you know how to do in practice you've actually gone through and done that. So that's kind of the whole idea. It's more helpful for people earlier in their careers or maybe coming out of a boot camp or something. Even for college graduates, it's really helpful at that very early point, and you won't have to focus on it as much the more years that you're in the industry. So first question is just, what is a developer portfolio? So there's a lot of examples of developer portfolios, and some of them are good examples of what to put in a portfolio and others are not as good. So really what the portfolio is, like I mentioned, is showcasing your skills, projects that you've done before, and who you are like as a person, and sort of what you would bring to a team that you would be on. And so you want to talk about yourself in a very personal way. You want to have a really clear picture of work that you have done on side projects or volunteering. You want to have a way to contact you, get in touch, see your other platforms like LinkedIn or GitHub to continue learning about who you are. And just showcasing what skills that you know and things like that. So that's sort of what the portfolio is. Are there any questions so far? Great. So why do you need a developer portfolio at all? So kind of touched on that at the beginning. It's really, really useful early in your career because when you're applying to jobs, and especially when you're more junior, there's really high, there's a lot of people applying for the same jobs as you, and there's less sort of for you to showcase like why you are the one for that job. And so a portfolio can really help you stand out from other candidates by sort of really summarizing what you bring to the table in a really clear way. And also the portfolio in and of itself showcases who you are as a developer from having built the portfolio. So that's kind of why you need it. Now, it's important to note that like not all companies look at portfolios. A lot of companies do not even ever click on them. So for the companies that do look at them, you're going to have an advantage over the other candidates who don't have portfolios or have really sloppy, incomplete portfolios. But it's not a guarantee that putting all this energy in a portfolio is actually going to pay off. It's just that when it does have the opportunity to pay off, it's going to give you a big advantage. So that's kind of why you need it. I'll pause for questions again. Cool. So what sort of projects should you include in your portfolio? I think this stumps a lot of people early on because there's kind of this expectation that projects in your portfolio need to be nice and polished and complicated and really in depth to show that you're a great developer. And it's not necessarily the case. Like, obviously, if you have those nice polished projects, you want to put them up there at the top, but you don't, it's not a requirement for a project to end up in your portfolio. Really, you just want any sort of side project you may have worked on, or any volunteer or open source projects you've contributed to, or maybe it's not even code, but you have given a talk somewhere about something related to code, or you volunteered in some way, mentoring or doing something like that. Those are all things you want to showcase on your portfolio, and that's all valuable, even if it's a project that is not completely finished. There are a few features that you didn't complete, or the code itself is not the most polished code. That you still want to have it on your portfolio, and you want to just, we'll get into this later, but just sort of tell a story around that code and what you learned from building it. It doesn't have to be perfect, because what matters on your portfolio isn't that you have these nice like products that you have uh, sort of worked up to. It's the actual working up to that end result, and showcasing everything you learned along the way and the fact that you actually went in and did the work. That's the important part of the portfolio, not just the nice website on the other side. So then for what not to include, which is also important, you don't want to include projects that are like tutorials or hello world. Let's say you're wanting to learn JavaScript or something, and you go do a hello world off of the website, or you follow a tutorial online that gives you all the step-by-steps of how to build something. That's not necessarily a project you want to put into your portfolio, because it's not really demonstrating that you have built code. It's demonstrating that you've been able to copy code. And so you want to really have a project that is the one that you did after that tutorial. It's after you got started, after you learned something, then how did you apply it on your own? It doesn't mean that it can't be guided in any way. Like maybe you took bits and pieces from other things online that you learned, or you took a prompt from the internet and built a project off of it. That's fine. You just don't want a project that is purely mimicking something that someone else built. Other things you don't want to necessarily include are unrelated projects. So, for example, if you have done design, or if you just have other hobbies, which are really cool to showcase, but not necessarily programming related, there's other places in your portfolio that you can talk about that experience, but you don't want to have it side by side with your applications and development work, because it's going to be distracting from the overall what you're trying to showcase in that section. But yeah, any questions? Great, flying through it.
Actually, I have a question.
Go for it.
So I think when I was first starting out, and finished a boot camp, the next step was to build a portfolio and start applying to jobs. And since I had just came from a boot camp and learned how to make websites, I thought that making my portfolio by hand or like from scratch was important. Is that important, or does it matter? Can you just use like a Squarespace site or something to make your portfolio? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we might touch on that a little bit down the line. I think if you can build your website on your own, like that's really demonstrating to the employer that like you've taken the time to practice your skills in preparing that yourself. And it's also a problem you'll run into with using a Squarespace or something like that and using a template, is that it's very, very easy then for your portfolio to look exactly like someone else's. And that's another point that we'll get to, is how really your portfolio needs to be super unique to stand out and not just be sort of like if you switched out the text, it could be someone else's website, word for word. So it's not impossible to use a hosted solution and really bring yourself out in that portfolio, and take the time to do that. That could be fine. But in a lot of cases, it's going to end up looking better to build it yourself, even if that means you build it yourself, like with some guided tools, like not necessarily line by line from scratch. Maybe you use like a CMS for the content, and you use like a framework like Next.js or something like that out of the box to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And you just do some of the coding of the website. So.
Sweet. Thanks.
Yep. Cool. So the next part, how many projects to put on your portfolio? Like between 2 and 5 is the recommendation. So you want to have at least 2 projects so that you're showcasing, like, there's not just this one thing that you did and that's all you can show. But you also don't want to overwhelm with so many projects that like the person looking at your website doesn't look at any of them, because there's like 10 and that's way too much. So right between 2 and 5 is the sweet spot, where you can really like showcase your top projects that you've done and really go into detail about what you did and what you learned. And so, yeah, that's kind of the recommendation size wise. So if you have a lot of projects, kind of prioritizing by which ones were the most in depth, which ones are you most proud of, which ones challenged you the most. And if you don't have many projects, like if you only have one, maybe create another spin-off of that project and like refactor it with a different library, or build onto it and turn it into something different. Have 2 projects that way, or just even start a whole different side project, something that you could do in a short amount of time. And then also like your portfolio itself, though it's something you're building, it shouldn't be one of your then projects that you showcase in the portfolio. So you'll want to have like building your portfolio and then 2 other projects that you've done on top of that. Cool. So the next point is understanding your audience, which is pretty important. I think, especially for tech, sometimes we communicate too technically, and it can be really easy to communicate too technically about our technical projects. So just understanding that a lot of times the people looking at your personal portfolio will be like HR people. They will have like never touched a line of code in their life, or maybe they are HR people and they've asked for a developer to help look at the portfolio. Or if you're applying to a really small company, it might not be a HR person at all. It might be a developer looking at your site. So really trying to cater to multiple audiences and hitting that balance of having enough technical information that another developer would see the competency that you have, but also a business or HR person wouldn't be confused by the language that you're using. And so really hitting that balance with technical communication and knowing how to get everything across in the right way. The next point is making yourself stand out. So this is kind of what I mentioned in terms of templates and content, and how like the portfolio doesn't do a lot for you if it's not really unique to who you are. And so one example I will show you, here is a generic portfolio, which does not look altogether different from the portfolios we've had the intro students working on, which have really been a baseline that for them to build on top of, because having your portfolio too generic really, like if you're looking at this from a hiring person's perspective, they might be looking at 30 portfolios, and it, you know, looking at all of those side by side, you can see a lot of similarities, and that's going to make it hard to remember you specifically. Even if your website looks great, if it's not unique enough, it won't stand out. So this site, for example, it's very simple, which is fine. But when you scroll down and look at the About Me, a lot of this is like not very unique to who this person is as a person, right? So this last bit is a little bit personable, but the rest of it you could really switch out. You could switch out the location, you could switch out the boot camp, and then you would have someone else's portfolio because it's just not very unique. Same for the projects, right? And so, you know, this is just very, very generic, and it's not a bad place to start. But you just want to keep building onto these different sections and really go into more detail about who you are, give a little glimpse of your personality and how you work, and just set up the expectation for whoever's looking at this website. Like, what would it be like to work with this person? And if I were meeting them in person, like, what would they be like is how you want to try to communicate as much of that as you can through your portfolio. So then another example here, we have just a little bit more, you know, we have upfront like who this person is with a picture. And if you look at this About section, it goes into more depth about who this person is. So how they have grown as a developer, how their experiences have shaped them. This is very, very unique information about this person. It's not just a generic text about what they have, what their experience is. So we have these skills, and not only do we have the skills, but it talks about like how this person gained these skills, how the skills have helped them. And you can just see all of the personable sort of blurbs that give more insight into who this developer is, right? So yeah, that's just kind of two examples. Any questions on that point? Cool. So next one is be a tour guide. So going back to this generic portfolio, we have these 3 projects. It looks very nice, right? We have this little card, we have links, we have a description, we have an image of each of these projects. As developers, we would like to think that we've designed this really nice little collection of our work, and someone is going in and clicking all the links we have presented to them and looking at our work. The reality is that they are not doing that at all. When someone's coming to your website, they're looking for their attention, like they're looking for you to grab their attention really quickly to make them want to scroll down to the rest of the page. And then once they see your work, they want to see as much of it as they can right in that moment. And you really want to guide them through what you want them to see, because you can't expect them to look at it the way that you want them to look at it, right? So how I might expect someone to come to this section on my website is I might expect them to look at the image, read the description, click on the GitHub link to go look at the code, which maybe these links don't work. This is an example, but go look at the code and then click on this link and actually go look at the website deployed somewhere, click around on the website, see what it is all about. I can't expect actually someone coming to my website to do those things. And so what you want to do is showcase your projects in a way that you're guiding step by step what you want someone to see out of that project. And the other reason that's important is because like live demos are really unreliable as well. So leaning on a live demo of your work to be the way that someone sees it, you know, the deployment of that application could expire. You could lose the domain. There could be a bug that shows up and you're no longer maintaining it, and so you don't notice it stopped working. So relying only on a live demo, you might actually be funneling someone in to see your work in a way that is not its best presentation. So the better way to have your projects on here, which unfortunately is more time consuming and takes more effort, but is to actually walk them through the project and every detail about it you want them to know. So the way that we commonly do that on portfolios is with case studies. And this is one example. Oh, way too far. So this is one example. And so you might on your website, instead of linking to, some external site here, you would just have it open your case study. And then a case study could look something like this page, where you still have the title, the description of the project, but you also give kind of a little summary about what skills that you implemented by doing that project, and then having some screenshots, but having screenshots embedded throughout. And then you want to really talk about the purpose and the goal of the project, what technologies that you used and why you chose to use those things. And again, the embedded screenshots. The most important part, like, what was your thought process and what are some specific problems that you ran into when you did that project and how did you solve them? That is like what people care about. Like having like this really cool project that someone can go look at is like good. But what someone really wants to know is like, where did you struggle and how did you overcome that, so that they know that you could solve their problems if you came to work with them. So problems and thought process, lessons learned kind of goes hand in hand with that. And then you would have other case studies for the other projects in your portfolio. So again, up to 5. So as you can imagine, this is a little bit more work than this, but spending that time and really writing it out, it can be like 1 paragraph per section, right? So you're essentially writing a page of content, but it's just going to add so much context and value to the work that you're showcasing that'll help you stand out, especially if you're earlier in your career and you don't have that experience to back it up. So that is being a tour guide. Any questions? Cool. I think this is my last point. So design. Not all developers are designers, nor should they need to be. But design on your portfolio does matter because people are looking at your website. And again, especially if it's not developers looking at your website, non-developers have an expectation when browsing the web that it looks a certain way, right? Other developers might, like see a very technical looking, simple skeleton of a website and think that's cool. But a lot of non-technical people will have an expectation about design. And not even just design in terms of a look and feel and how nice something looks, but the actual experience of going through your website, right? Is there a navigation that they can jump to whatever content they're looking for? Is the user drawn into the parts of the page you want them to be drawn into? Is the text readable? Is the font big enough? Those types of user experience things are important too, because you want someone to really experience your portfolio in a way that they're going to get out of it what you're trying to present. So again, keeping in mind that not all developers are designers, some things that can help with this, one is using templates like we kind of talked about, but you run into a challenge where you might end up using a template that lots of people also are using, and it's really hard to distinguish your website from somebody else's. Something else you can do is just looking at other portfolios online, finding ones that kind of look like what you want your website to look like, and kind of copying elements from that. You don't want to copy like someone else's personal site exactly, because again, it's not going to be unique. And also that might be copyright issues depending on how they've licensed their code. But you can take certain elements from various sites that you like and kind of construct your own design to sort of match who you are and what you want to showcase. So you don't have to do it from scratch, essentially, is the idea here, unless you just are a designer and you want to do that. You can definitely take pieces from other places and build off of that design. But it's definitely important. And then the last here, a lot of these points have actually come from a guide online by Josh Kumo. And this is the link you can go to download that PDF. And it has tons of information going into all the things we covered here. It also has lots of screenshots and examples that you can take, including these examples that I walked through for you. So please go to this website. You just put your email address and you'll get your free PDF for it. I'm not a sponsor. This is just a really useful guide that will give you even more detail than what we talked about today. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Elliot. That was super useful. I wonder, Cruz, I don't know if you'd be willing, but I wonder if you'd be willing to share your portfolio with us, since you're one of the people who mentioned that. And Elliot, just so you, I don't know if you've ever met Cruz. Cruz is Code Dream staff person who was actually one of the very first Code Dream students. Is a Rails developer. Yeah, Cruz, would you be willing to share yours?
Yeah, I think that'd be great, but it's really outdated, and like I feel like it's kind of embarrassing, but I could show it.
Yeah, with that caveat.
Yeah, I was trying to update it actually this week, but I was having problems like updating the versions of things, and it's just a mess. Yeah, let me see if I could pull it up and share my screen. That's important.
I just gave you co-host powers, so.
Thank you. So I bought a domain for mine, and this was built by scratch, and these pictures are pretty old. I don't look like that anymore. But the homepage is just an about me, and I have multiple pages you could go to. And I'm actually logged into this website, and I have an extra tab here that's not usually seen by other people. Because this website seems so basic to me, I thought maybe I could make it interesting by just switching up the color sometimes. So I added this like color picker thing, and then that saves it, and then whoever sees that just sees a different color based on what I saved last. But anyways, that's not really about the portfolio or projects. So I first made this portfolio after I finished a coding boot camp. So I didn't really know what to do besides like Rails CRUD application. So I just made a projects table in the database, and it has a title and an image that I can attach. This is a GIF, so it makes it, it adds like animation. I can add, I think, 2 pieces of like description, and also I can associate technologies with a project. Like if I used Rails, or if I use React, or if I use JavaScript, or anything, any technologies I can think of, I can add them here. And the technologies also have links in case the person cares about seeing what is this technology they're talking about. Yeah, and for a lot of these, instead of attaching an image, I attach like a GIF, which makes it look like a video, and it shows how an app is supposed to work. So this is just a calculator that calculates shipping, tax, and total based on an entered amount. And I did this for like my mom's side business. And here I didn't follow Elliot's advice where you're supposed to show between 2 and 5 projects. I actually have 11 here, but I did add pagination, so the page isn't so long, but there are 4 pages. And this goes all the way back to like my first project that I made with Coded Dream back in like 2014 or 2015, just like a simple image sharing website. I also have a resume here in case people want to look at that. And you can also click on either of these links and download it on your computer in case you want to save it. And that's pretty much it for the portfolio. And I also attempted to make like a different UI for this. So I added a version 2 up here, which has like a different approach. But the projects pages aren't the most fleshed out, so they're not very that interesting. But it is like a different front end. Anyone have questions about this? Oh, I also have links to LinkedIn, GitHub, and email. I used to have my phone number here too, but I thought that was too personal, and maybe giving my email is also too personal. I don't know. Cool. Thank you guys for letting me share.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Cruz.
Nice.
Yeah. Elliot, did you have any, I don't know, any comments on Cruz's site?
Yeah, I think I dropped one in the chat, but the GIFs are great for the tour guide aspect. It's a little dark, but they're great for the tour guide aspect because you're able to walk through your project in the way that you want someone to see it. And you're guaranteed that that sort of demo is not going to fail. Whereas if you just provided a link, you're not guaranteed for what someone's going to click on, what order they're going to click on it. So whether or not they're actually going to see all the features you intend for them to see. And you're also not guaranteed that that link's going to work when they get to it. Obviously, you can keep check on your website every so often, but it could break. So I thought that was great. Definitely like maybe prioritizing the projects now when you go back through it and like what are the top ones and still having the others if you want, but like hide them below the fold or have like a more projects or maybe showcase them somewhere else like in your GitHub. You can have like a README on GitHub now, which I haven't set up yet, but you could kind of go into more projects in a platform like that. Yeah, that was a good example.
Thank you. I think that's good feedback.
Awesome. Well, I mean, my plan now was for people to actually break up into groups to talk about their own portfolios. It sounds like not a lot of people have portfolios, but I think it still might be helpful to break up into small groups so you guys can talk about what you've taken away and what you would like to incorporate. Another idea, Elliot, is if there's a couple of example port links to some portfolios that maybe folks could take a look at and sort of based on what we have learned from you, maybe critique a little bit, okay, what's good about this one, what's not as good about this one, and how you might want to use that for your own. One question I had, Elliot, is if you are not at the stage where you're job seeking, or you're just, have stable job as a developer, is it still good to have a portfolio?
Yeah, so I would say like definitely before you get to the point of looking for jobs, having your portfolio then is great because one, you can show it to your peers or even just try to get some organic traffic and start to get feedback on it early. And then also once you're in the process of applying for jobs, which like is a full-time job, you won't also be trying to get out this website and like get everything together for it. It's going to take you some time. So I would say the earlier you can get a jump start on it and just kind of pick away at the details, like when you have time, the better, instead of trying to save it up for when you're ready to use it.
Yeah, it's probably true of resumes and LinkedIn stuff also. And just real quick, Sinan, I was gonna say another thing I'm thinking, Cruz, seeing yours, and I know you have tons to update on that, but it makes me think how great it will be to have like for Code the Dream staff developers, having like showcasing our staff's portfolios will be really awesome to be able to basically show off, like, look how cool our folks are. Okay, so Sinan, were you gonna say something?
Oh, Isha, I was gonna ask, like, do we have time? Like, I could share my portfolio, and if I get some feedback, is it possible or no?
Yeah, sure. Why don't we do that? Why don't we spend 5 minutes? Yeah, doing that. Yeah, go. Let me make you see. Okay, there. You should be able to share now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I will appreciate it. Yeah, this is my portfolio.
I hope you include your pre-work, Sinan, and your final project.
Oh, okay. Actually, I think something wrong with the. Do you guys see? Yeah.
I can't.
We see your screen, but it's just black.
Yeah.
Oh, why it is like this actually? Let me try to share again. I'm sorry about that. Okay, you see right now?
There, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the kind of like I put to my name and kind of like the navigation bar to goes to the other parts actually, kind of like resume, and then projects comes, and I put to my Code the Dream projects and some other projects, and then some information about me, and then it goes to experience, and then it goes to contact with me. Actually, this form is not so great, but then these are the like the LinkedIn and Facebook stuff, and yeah, that's the portfolio I was using. Yeah, should I kind of like put my own picture or something in this format is okay? Actually, this was kind of like format was the Bootstrap format, and is it better to make my own unique thing, or just like keeping this is okay?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Going back to the point of, do you need to build your portfolio from scratch? If you want to showcase that you can build a component library, like that's great, especially if you're going for more front-end roles where you would be doing that as your job. It's also perfectly fine to use a library off the shelf like Bootstrap, or there's many Ant-Design, take your pick. But what you really want to focus on with using a library like that is how you theme the library and how you make it look more unique, so that there's going to be something about your website that stands out and it doesn't look like it's just off the shelf. So how can you play with the colors, maybe the treatments of the buttons and different things like that to really make it more fitting to you, or just more unique from other stuff you might see, to where you don't have to build everything from scratch. You just kind of need to customize it however you want. So that would be one recommendation. So like with Bootstrap, like the primary color of Bootstrap being blue when you just take it off the shelf. So maybe play around with your primary colors, create sort of a brand for yourself in a way, and carry that throughout the whole site. What is your color palette that kind of gives us a glimpse of who you are, in terms of your personality? Or maybe it could just be your favorite color, right? Like it doesn't have to be super super in depth, but just something different.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And then of course, with your about section, like how can you make that more personable? We just glanced over it, but I could tell it's a little bit short. So like actually in that guide, if you check that out, I'm sure Lori will share the link. But in that guide, it has a great example of how in depth you can go about yourself and what you can talk about. And so that would be one recommendation here. But yeah, some of the bits you have in here actually are looking good. I would just want more about you. But I think it's a starting point.
Okay. And the displaying the projects are basically, these are just links. Just when I click, it's supposed to go to the project page. But some projects, like I am kind of like using the free Heroku account. Basically, when you first click, it's kind of like it's not gonna open immediately. It takes some time to like database run and kind of like is it the issue? It can be the issue about this applications. For example, like someone looking the page, they click the, for example, like this project is the, okay, this is not the perfect example. I think I should. Why I am not able to? Okay, for example, like this is the. It takes time to run the application actually. When you first click that free Heroku apps, like this is something like bad, or I just keep it that way actually.
Yeah, so that's a great like.
For example, it takes like 30-40 seconds sometimes. I think
that's a great demonstration of why you want to have not just the link to your project, but a study around your project, because one, you don't have to rely on the link that someone's going to actually being up and running live, and being performant. For example, if I saw that and the link was taking a long time to load, I would probably just not look at the site, right? Especially an HR person would not stay for that site to load. They would look at something else or even just close out. So what you want to use there instead is a case study about that project where you have maybe video or screenshots of that project running, because it's not so important for someone to see the website live to like see proof that it's a thing, right? You can have the link to GitHub to see the code. You can have the link to the live website if someone wants proof that you actually built this and look at the code of how it's built. But that shouldn't be the thing you're showcasing. The thing you're showcasing is why this was a project, why you did it, what were the goals, what did you learn, etc. So having that study around the project, and then you wouldn't have to worry about like, oh, this project takes a long time to load, because that wouldn't be the primary thing that your user is actually trying to see.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Elliot, for feedback. Yeah.
I forgot to show this, but I also have the website being like responsive to different widths. Is that important? Like when you go to a certain width, it changes completely and it goes into like a mobile app look and feel.
Yeah, you want your website to be responsive. It's actually something I didn't even touch on, but you could have like someone checking out your profile from their phone or from a smaller computer than what you're developing on. Developers generally have bigger screens than the people actually using the things they build. You also might, link to your website on your social media or your LinkedIn, and it's going to be really probable that someone looks at that link on their phone. And so you want to make sure that your site is responsive. So no matter what device someone looks at it on, it's going to look good. And it's not going to be, it's going to be suited for that device.
Great. Okay, I'm going to break folks off into groups now, and I would say take about 10 minutes, let's say, just with your partner. I'm just going to break people off into twos, And then you can, Elliot has posted a link to a page there where you can find examples of portfolios, and I've included some reflection questions that you can use. So let's take about 10 minutes to do that. And Cruz, if you want to stay in here for a minute. Oh. Hey Siri, set a timer for 9 minutes.
9 minutes, counting down.
Welcome back, everybody. I want to check in. I know that our apprentices have a little more time blocked out, but Elliot, I just wanted to check in on your time. Can you stay a few more minutes, or do you need to?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, well, does anybody want to share? I'm curious. Narayan was just sharing a little bit about their experience in Narayan and Cedric's group, but I'm wondering, what did other people find? What did you discover? See good stuff, not good stuff?
Yeah, I saw Cintu's page. I thought it was pretty cool. She had a really cool homepage, and the About Me section was really nice too. So yeah, I thought it's definitely inspired me to build one because I don't have a portfolio. But Cintu's was very cool. Yeah.
Cintu, do you want to share it with everybody?
Sure, but Kawase, he
Sorry to put you on the spot, Cintu. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Secret's out now.
You were trying to keep that hidden away, but Quasi let it.
No,
it
that's
out.
not much. Just Kawase, he don't have just he gonna design new one and he exaggerates mine. That's why.
It was good.
Well, you don't have to, but you're welcome to if you want to.
Yeah, just I can show. Never mind. Just okay. Okay. No, this is for. I'm going to show for my net field. Just there is also the option to upload for the project for him. Yeah. Yeah, this is my small portfolio. Yeah, there is the about page here, and just we can come to for this case, but I have it. There is also the projects. These are the projects. This one is the one I built when I was on the Coda Dream. This is a React, and I use a Firebase for accessing database. So this is my final project for blog post on the Corda Dream last class. This is sample page for, but it's right now, it gives me, it show me to direct onto GitHub, but I just forget to how to access. It has its own pages to show in the net field. Once you open it, you can see all pages by itself instead of directing to in the GitHub. When I click it right now, it's directed to you go for the GitHub to see the code, but I have all of the page, it's run by itself, and you can click every page by itself to run it. So yeah, that's and here is some my social media. It's a sample, but just I see there are a cool portfolios and the sample as well, so I'm going to make it good as well.
Yeah, so this looks really good. The about section, fantastic. That gives great color to who you are as a person, some of your background, how you stand out. The projects, the perfect amount of projects to showcase there. And again, maybe work on some case studies about those projects just to give more insight into how you went about working on them and not just the outcome of your work. But I think this looks great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tahirda. Thank you.
Great, thanks for sharing. I know Andre wants to share his portfolio as well. Let's, before we do that, let's get a little bit more feedback of anything that you saw that you really liked or didn't like of some of the sample ones.
Yeah, I saw the Andre's portfolio, and yeah, I kind of like really like it. It's like so nice professional design, and I think like the after seeing
I
that,
show
I
it?
think like yeah, you can show.
Okay, guys. Can I show? Oh, I need to special preference in my system. Oh my gosh.
Oh, have you not shared? Yeah, everyone should be able to share their screen now, but you might have some, you might have to log off and log back on.
Yeah. I need to log in again.
Okay, we'll keep talking and wait for you.
Okay.
Nope. Wait. Oh, Andre, are you sharing?
Yeah.
Oh, great, it worked. Okay, super.
No, I am sharing actually.
Oh, Sinan is sharing. Okay, yeah, talk us through it. Wow.
Do you want me to stop sharing, or you want to talk about it?
No, I think you keep sharing, Sinan. Andre, you talk to us about it.
Yeah, no, it's just my website. Yeah. And now I want to move a section with the portfolio here, because now I have only different links. Sinan, could you click on this link? Look to my GitHub portfolio, right? I did it. It was like a temporary decision because I don't have time to put it inside, and I just make on a GitHub. This is my project. You can run this project if you click on pictures, and if somebody just want to see my code, I provide links below. Yeah, look to the code. No, it's a yellow one, links. Yeah, and you can see a code here from. I think it's very important for technical guys who just want to look how do you make code. Yeah, Sinan, come back. Come back to main page. Yeah, and just scroll down. You can download my resume. It's a huge yellow button, yeah, and you give a file with docs with my resume. You can make it if you want. Just show that it's work. Yeah. Open words. Okay. And scroll down. Animation. Some animation here, but oh yeah, it happens. When you scroll down, these elements show up with animation CSS plugin. Yeah, just why I want to be like a front-end developer, technical skills, my pictures with apartments. My social links, it's a real link. You can go there and look at my lifestyle and my LinkedIn, and yeah, three value that I want to follow this value, be a good designer and professional web developer with strong motivation. And if you need this, then we are with you on the right way. I don't know, maybe it's not sounds good for English people. I just translated from my mind, and maybe if you fix me and give me a better phrase with the same meanings, it will be good. And also we have some back, one button, just, okay. Yeah, if you fill up this form, you will get a portfolio, and I will get your contact information. Yeah, that's it. And also it's work with mobile application, no, mobile device too, because it have a responsible design. So then you can, if you can, just move window, make, yeah, just.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Andrei.
Thank you, Sinan, too.
Oh, do you want to keep it pulled up, actually? Sinan?
Sinan, can you bring it back up?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so I think this looks really cool. I liked how it showcases like a photo of you up front, and it has this summary. So you get really a glimpse of what you're about right away. I'd say one recommendation is convert your resume to a PDF format, just because that's going to be more transferable on the web. If someone doesn't have something to open a Word document, they won't be able to see your resume. And then if you scroll down a bit, I think in some of this about kind of touches on the point of like, this is all very professional and it speaks a lot to your experience and who you are professionally, but I don't get a lot of who you are personally, like as a human, which I'm really looking for because I see all these photos of you and I'm wanting to know who is the person behind this website. So maybe trying to add more details like that. Where do you come from? Why do you do this? Why are you passionate about it?
Okay.
What are some things that you have learned on your journey? What is your journey of what got you here? Just a little bit more of like really about you and not about what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And then can you scroll down a bit more? Yeah, keep going. All right, yeah, keep going. So we had some projects on here, right? Is it farther down?
Projects, it's
Or that's from the top with your GitHub?
yeah, it's in different links.
So I would bring maybe 2 or 3 of those projects actually into your main page here.
Okay.
So if I'm looking for what are projects you've worked on, especially if I'm an HR person, I'm not looking for GitHub portfolio. To me, I don't know what that is. I'm not clicking on it. So maybe pull just a few of those that are really good showcases of your skills actually onto this main page and talk a bit about them. And then also for your the contact at the bottom, I'm wondering where you have that information stored.
I just write it with HTML. It's just inside an HTML.
Where does it send it? Like, do you have a database or something?
No, it's just a short JavaScript.
It sends like an email to you?
Yeah, it sends email to me, right?
I got you. Yeah, so I think you're probably fine with the disclaimer you have here, but you might want to have like a more extensive privacy policy just with all the new laws that are out with privacy.
Yeah.
That you're collecting phone numbers and you are only using it for this purpose, and actually it's not even going into a database, but you might want to have that kind of spelled out a little bit more to protect yourself. And you have is the site secure, like with a SSL certificate?
Okay. Gotcha. Or maybe or maybe a better way remove this block.
That's up to you. Just a couple, I think, additions to it to make it more secure, but and privacy wise, but that's up to you.
Yeah. Privacy, it's very important now.
Overall, I think it looks great. And also, I think where you were having questions about some of the language and if that was good or not, I think that is another good point of having others that you can show your portfolio to, because even the way that like native English speakers say something might not make sense to somebody else. And so maybe just bounce this off of some other people and just say like, do you have any recommendations for how to word certain things on the site. I think that, just looking for peer feedback is the best way to go about that.
All right. Show somebody who just native speaker and he fix me, right?
Well, just some suggestions or, help you word things in a different way. I do that with my friends for my website.
Yeah.
Does the way I said this make sense? So, yeah.
Andre, I have one suggestion also. I love the cover, the first look. It looks so, wow. It's like, looks great. And that first look. One thing is it seems like for your skills, you have it listed in a few different ways. Like this section right here that we're looking at is this bulleted list, which is very clear. But then I think, can you scroll up, Sinan?
In the main page. Right?
Oh, wait, down a little bit. Down, yeah, right there. So then you have all of these, the web developer kit, HTML, CSS, JS, and then you have the web design kit. To me, it's a little bit confusing. It's like especially as somebody who's not a developer, maybe it's like, I don't know if it's different things or the same things because if you list it twice. So I'm not sure about that. If there's a way that could be a little bit more standard. It's like a lot to look at all at once.
It's maybe best a question because for me, it's every time I'm confused with it because I have strong background with as designer, as web designer, and do I need to show this experience if my goal now will be a full stack developer, or it could be better for me if I apply and have this background, or it's make my chances to get a job less because I like from designer field switch to developer field.
Yeah, so great question for me because I have that same background as well. So also do a lot of web design, user experience, graphic design, etc. So I think this goes back to what to include in your portfolio. And even though design is a very tangential skill to development, especially front-end web development, it can be like unless you are looking to be a freelancer and someone's asking you to design and develop their website, you want to showcase all of that you have that full stack of skills. But if you're trying to apply to a job where you're going to be a developer, it's going to be helpful for whoever's hiring to know that you have that design experience, but it's not necessarily the job that they're hiring you for. So it can be distracting to have all of that included next to your development skills. And in some cases, it can almost detract from the development skills when really it should be adding to it. So what I would suggest with that is if you're going up for a development role, have the design as part of your about me, like, talk about your who you are, what your background is, and also mention that you have this experience with design, and then maybe link somewhere else to see a showcase of design work that you've done and not have it intermingled with also your development work. That would be my recommendation for that if you're going for a development job specifically.
Okay, this makes sense. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Hey, I just wanted to say, Andre, I really like your website. I pulled it up on my computer and it's really responsive and snappy and it just looks nice. It's nice to use and scroll through. About what you were just talking about, I've seen some people that do like an objective statement on their portfolio or their resume. So it kind of, you showcase all of the skills that you have, but then in that objective statement, you say what you're trying to do with all those skills now. So I'm curious what, Elliot, what you think about statements like that in portfolios and where that could be used here.
Yeah, I think up front, like you'll want to see something like that, the very landing of your site, kind of on that generic example, but a little bit more unique. Talking about like where your focus is in your role and whether or not you're looking for jobs, essentially. So like what you're focused on and where you are with your career. It's also your about section is a great place to go into detail about here's where I've been in my career and here's what I've picked up along the way, and here's where I'm really focused now and where I want to specialize. Like the about is a great place to really go into detail about that. And then in terms of a resume, like whether or not to have an objective on your resume is like one of the 100 controversial things about technical resumes. Like you'll get an answer either way, and it depends on the company, what they're looking for. There's no like gold standard for do these things and don't do those things. But what I've seen recommended the most is using an objective if you're doing a career shift. So if you have a lot of job experience in a different industry or a different career, and you're trying to switch into development or whatever it is, having an objective that highlights that shift and what your goal is, so that the HR person that sees your resume doesn't immediately say, oh, this person is not even what we're looking for. The objective kind of helps walk them through. Maybe if you're more junior in your career, an objective could help, like especially if you're just coming out of boot camp or school. But the farther you get into your career, the less necessary it is. And some hiring, like some recruiters will see an objective statement and like throw away the resume. It just is really contentious. So I think those are two good use cases for an objective on your resume, and otherwise just allow your portfolio to be the place where you talk about yourself and what your goals are.
Thank you.
Can I ask you about is it good idea describe your hobbies or your lifestyle, who you are after work and what you are doing in a free time? Not just I like football, for example, or just ride the bike or hiking. It's important for manager or no?
Yeah, so that's actually great details to put into that personable about section, where you're like really talking about who you are outside of when you're working. And so one of the examples, like I think Sentu's site, and then also some examples you'll see in that guide, like talking about who you are outside of being a developer, what hobbies you have, what you like to do after work. That's the right place to go into all those details. And it should be like a narrative, right? Like you don't want a section that just has like icons of different hobbies and like, here's what I do. Like you really want to tell the story of here's what I do on the weekend and talk about how you got into it or how long you've been doing it, etc. Like tell a story with it.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's another question from you, Lauren, in the chat as well, if we want to talk about that as a group.
Yeah, great. Lauren, do you want to just repeat your question out loud?
Sure. I was just asking what the best way is to actually give feedback. Like when you're looking through a website itself, should you be taking screenshots of specific things or of like the whole, trying capturing the whole part of the website that you're looking at and mocking it up and making notes on it, or like making a list of items that you want the person to look at? How should we approach that?
Yeah, so I would say it depends on the context. If you know the person whose site you're reviewing, I think you can't be like doing a screen share with them and just talking through what your feedback is and having a conversation. If this is someone that you don't necessarily know or don't have time to do that kind of a thing, screenshots are good. Like I would go into, that portfolio would hopefully be hosted on GitHub. So I would actually go into that GitHub repository and maybe open an issue where you have feedback about the portfolio, and then there show your screenshots, maybe point to certain lines of code that you have suggestions for, etc. But But yeah, I think screenshots are a good way to make sure someone knows what part of their website you're pointing to when you talk about it, and just giving clear feedback that way. You could also like print the website as a PDF and do like PDF comments and stuff might also be a useful format. So yeah, it just depends on the setting and what methods of delivery are available to you. But the closer you can get the feedback to the point of the website it's relevant to, the better.
Could I share a link for 100 web developers portfolios that I used to get some idea or a good example from them in the chat?
Yeah, great. Go ahead. Great, thanks. Are there, I know it's about 3:30 now and I don't want to keep you guys too long. So are there any other, is there anything else that came up as you, when you were paired off? Any other questions you had for each other or for Elliot?
That was one thing that, in reference to, is it Narayan? I love his name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but there was one thing that he and I ran into. Our individual was bilingual, and his first page was in English, but his projects were in Spanish. And he didn't indicate that in any of his writings, that his projects or his website or portfolio was in dual language.
That's a great point. Elliot, have you seen examples like that? Good practices for handling that?
Yeah, so I think one, if you're bilingual, if you know multiple languages, like showcasing that either in your about me or like non-technical skills or whatever it is great. And then in terms of the language of the site, like obviously for accessibility, if you have an English speaker looking at the site and they don't know Spanish and so they can't really understand half of it, that's not going to serve you very well. And so maybe trying to have it available, the entire web page in multiple languages. So having an English and a Spanish version of the whole site. Obviously browsers have Google Translate built in. I think there's a couple extra things you can do to make your website really tailored for that to work well, for Google to translate it for you. So I think just having the language consistent throughout wherever possible, and then provide multiple translations depending on who is looking at your site is the best way. Because you don't want it to be that someone can't enjoy the content that you've created because it's in a different language. But also if you can have it in multiple languages, it expands your audience and your reach of that site. So yeah.
Thank you.
Before we log off, also, I just had an idea that maybe after this session, people might be inspired to go work on their portfolios, like a few people have said, but I wonder if we would want to come back together in, I don't know, say a month or whatever time frame you guys think would be good, and we could see kind of the progress of what everybody's been working on. What would you guys think about that?
Sure.
Sounds like a good idea.
That way it also gives people, at least I know for me, it's hard to do things if I don't have a deadline I'm shooting for. But so if we have a date, say in a month's time or something, then we can come back together and check it out. Is that a good amount of time for folks? Yeah. Okay, Aster says yes.
1 month is good.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Well, and then Elliot, I think we would invite you to join if you were available. We know Elliot gives so much of his time to Code the Dream. So, but if you would like to give another hour, you would be invited.
Happy to.
Awesome.
And please make sure Lori, if you can send that link out, I'll shoot it over to you in Slack. Please make sure to like download that guide because it's going to literally walk you step by step, especially if you haven't even started on your portfolio, or even if you have and you're trying to refine it. Like it literally spells out every step of the process for you, and it has examples. So I cannot overstate how useful that that document is.
That's awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, Elliot. If anybody wants to stay on a little bit longer and just talk through anything, if there's a couple people, you guys can maybe talk together. But I want to make sure Elliot has a chance to get back to work, and anybody else who needs to. So thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you, Elliot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let me stop recording.